Hello, everyone. This is the Blood and Pigment podcast. My name's Garrett Swader, and I'm here with Joseph.
You're getting that NPR voice down. Nice.
I'm working on it. And Dan.
What's up?
This episode, we're going to go through some Summer of Plunder updates. I think everybody's been having fun with that so far. I know I have. And we're going to continue on our ship project spiel that we've been doing and move on to the masts and rigging. Stuff like crafting sails, how you assemble the masts, and stuff like that.
That second half of the ship process that a lot of people get stuck.
Yeah, I've seen lots of ships just with no masts or with just like masts just sitting in the
Wobbling, yeah.
Yeah, in the holes with no rigging and stuff, which is fine. Hey, you got to get your stuff on the table, and if you got your hull painted, there's no shame in just throwing it on the table. But a nicely rigged ship always looks better. And so, first of all, we're going to go through some Summer of Plunder updates, and Joseph's going to lead the way on that. So, take it away, Joseph.
Yeah, I can give a couple updates as far as how it's going from the campaign manager perspective. You guys are leading the Spanish and the Pirates, so it'll be fun to hear your perspective so far. And I want to hear what's going on at people's game stores, because from all evidence on the entries and on Facebook and stuff, looks like there's a lot more activity at game stores this year, which is really great to see. So we're into right now, it's June 19th. So we're 2.5 weeks into the campaign. Got a noticeable uptick in participation. So far, we got about 195 people entering games so far. Last year, about 210 total. So 2.5 weeks in, we're already almost to that number. That's good. We got about 550 entries so far. Last year, I think our total number was 1,250 or so for 9 weeks. So we're on track to beat that by a considerable margin. Really great to see more people playing Blood and Plunder and Oak and Iron and having a good time. It's really, I get to log all the pictures, which is kind of a horrible job and a really fun job, because you get to see every single table out there people are playing games at. It's really, really fun. But there's a lot of pictures. So I always enjoy seeing people's games, their painted up miniatures or ships, their tables. Really fun to see people's different terrain, be that towels and Tupperwares or resin tables with nice water effects and everything. I've had the privilege of being able to see all the different national chats. So they have that Discord channel server, and everybody has their own channel. Each nation has their own channel they get to talk in. And it's kind of weird not being part of any of it. So I try not to interject, but it's fun to see each group kind of taking on their own character shaped by their players and their commanders. So I've been having a ton of fun from this side of things. I got stuff going at my store too, which is fun. But so far we got the Dutch are ahead right now. The point system is a lot different this year, but the Dutch are being smart and have got lucky combination, which is what you need to win. The Dutch are winning with just a couple more points, and the Spanish are a little behind. I think there's a bit of a vendetta against Spanish this year. What do you think about that, Garrett?
I think there is. I haven't went through the numbers, but I definitely think that we've been attacked the most out of everybody.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I crunched the numbers on that last year, and it was kind of telling. Yeah, whoever gets attacked least does pretty well.
I think it's still anybody's game at this point.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
I don't think we're out of it. But yeah, we are behind.
Looking at numbers, it's kind of fun to look at how many people are playing for each group. 36 people playing for the Dutch. No, take that back. 31. 46 playing for the English. 31 playing for the French. 15 playing for the natives. 37 for the Pirates, and 28 for the Spanish right now. So it's a good spread. Last year, I think some people took it upon themselves to help out the natives this year, which has been really nice. Have a few more players and people playing a lot of games too. So it's nice to have a little more balance. The English have the most games logged right now. 2 years ago, the English did really, really well. Last year, the Spanish did really well. It beat everybody. And the Pirates are always like second place all the time.
On the cusp.
Yeah.
It's how we do.
Pirates are popular.
Remind everyone that we're still here.
Looks like there's plenty of diplomacy, commanders talking to each other from my bird's eye view, but I don't know any details because I can't see that. I hope people are having a fun time. Looks like the players are involved a lot more, having to choose where to attack. I think sometimes it slows things down. People don't enter their games right away because they need to know where to attack. So that's been kind of a strange unintended consequence where people hold back their entries until they get clarity on where they want to log those entries as far as their locations on the map.
Yeah, usually like Sunday and Monday are dead days because I know in my chat I encourage people to save their entries a couple days just because Josh and I are frantically trying to figure out what we want to do.
At the end of each week, we're crunching the numbers at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. That's the cutoff on Saturday for the last entry for that week. And then Jason does a massive amount of work to crunch all those numbers and see which locations change hands, where all these points are going. And then we have to update the map and put out an update so people know what's going on. There's a good 12 hours where it's kind of up in the air unless we get it out really, really fast, which I was sick the first weekend, and then I was coming home from vacation the second weekend, so I've been crunched on time. But we got it turned around pretty good this week, and this coming week, the middle of June, should be faster. So getting it done, a lot of fun so far. Good to see numbers go up. How have you guys felt about your Summer of Plunder at your stores?
I've been doing pretty well. My player base doubled, and we actually had everybody pitch in to get a second set of organized playlist prizes, so everybody could get a prize. I had bought first for our original group, and then I realized I didn't have enough prizes, and I was really kind of embarrassed, and I was worried that if I asked everybody to pitch in monetarily, we wouldn't be able to get another one. But a lot of people pitched in way more than their fair share, and were able to get in and get another set, and I'm really happy about that.
Did I hear you're up to 8 players?
Yeah, and people who didn't even want prizes said, "Yeah, here's some money. Make sure the newbies get prizes and whatnot," which is fantastic. A lot of veteran players just trying to grow the game and take care of the newbies, and I love that.
Nice. I see a lot of pirate games being logged out of Texas there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Martin's been fantastic. If I'm teaching someone, he'll hop in and teach someone else, and he's basically my second at the store at this point. So if I'm not there, if I can't be there for whatever reason, he's usually there and he'll take up the spot, and it's great.
That's awesome to have a team.
Yeah, you can let them know that I still consider all of them traitors.
They don't care.
Most of them played for the Spanish last year.
They had the choice of what faction they wanted to play because they decided that we're all going to play one faction. I just said, "Well, I'm going to be playing pirates because I'm the commander, but y'all can do what you want." And they all decided pirates, so I didn't have to bribe them.
You got pirate on pirate on pirate action. Wow. Even the new guys playing pirates.
We have right now they were this past week. I think his name is Sam. Let me double check. Yeah, Sam. He's getting into natives, so he proxied his pirates for natives this past week, and then. I want to say Nate. I'm terrible. I'm good with faces, bad with names. Nate or Nathan, he's very new and he was playing Dutch and he requested to play Dutch, so I let him use some of my Dutch minis and he's been having a lot of fun with it.
Have you used any of the organized play miniatures or scenarios or anything yet? Or what are you guys playing?
We did Treasure Scramble and we had it on a couple tables and we did a 2v2 and basically I know it's for 4 players, but for just to make it easy, said, all right, here is 10 treasures all over this 4x4 map, and it is 2v2, 75 points each. Go crazy, and it was a lot of fun. We had a pirate player whose entire force was drunk and couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, but then charged some natives and whooped them.
And you just had a store move as well, and your group survived?
Yeah, other store, it closed. Which is great because the owner just got engaged today as well from that store. So congratulations, Ashley and Dimitri, if you're listening. Very happy for y'all. But yeah, they closed and they were kind enough to let me know a week in advance. So I was able to move to Evolution Games in Fort Worth, and they welcomed me in with open arms. I talked to the owner, and the owner said, yes, we're totally down, giving me a space in his display case to put signage and whatnot. So we moved over and we've doubled our players. So can't really complain over here.
Awesome. Good deal.
Very nice.
They got material stocked there, or are they trying to get through Firelock's backlog of orders? Or
I haven't proposed it yet because the previous owner that I knew I don't believe he owns it anymore at this point. So I kind of have to rebuild that report up. So we'll see. If I'm hoping when we get all these players coming in, I'm hoping we can get them to stock some product. That would be fantastic.
nice. Yeah, that's good to be able to pull it off the shelf.
Mm-hmm. I tell all my guys bare minimum, if we were playing at the store, buy a drink or a snack or something. Give them your business, and that's what we do.
How about you, Garrett?
I've been doing Wednesday nights and then sometimes on the weekends. My group's been steady. I've been getting a lot of interest in the game, just tonight I was playing a game with Tim, one of the regular guys that's usually playing Blood and Plunder. And then there was a guy that I gave an elevator pitch basically like a few minutes before Tim came about the game, so he seemed pretty interested in it. So I may get a demo out of him at some point. But yeah, we've got like 4 or 5 guys that are playing semi regularly when they can. Right now, every other week, Wednesdays are pretty lean. It's usually just me and Tim playing. But the other Wednesdays, we have like 5 guys in there playing, so it's good. We just got our organized play in recently, and so the owner that usually does the Blood and Plunder stuff, that's into Blood and Plunder, was not there tonight, so I didn't get to dig into it and look at it. So that'll probably be this weekend. I'm
Oh, yeah.
running a tournament this weekend, and hopefully I've got some guys coming in from Atlanta. If I've got 4 people, I'll be happy. If I've got more than 4 people, I'll be ecstatic. But we'll see how it goes. We may have to just like pair up and play regular games or something, punt and try it again another time.
Yeah, the critical mass for a tournament can be a challenge, but yeah, you need 4
I
at least.
wanted to try it during Summer of Plunder. I
Yeah.
didn't know if it was going to be a success or not. We'll see. Like I said, if I got 4 people there, we'll play a tournament. If we've got less than 4 people there, we can't really do it.
Yeah.
You said you've been sick and on vacation. Have you gotten any gaming in this Summer of Plunder, Joe?
Yeah, got a couple games in. I play every Thursday night as well. Say right after Dan, he's a little ahead of me. Group's going great. Got several new people coming. Some during the summer it can be sketchy. There's a couple guys that are retired or have grandkids or something. And summertime they got things to go do on weeknights. But yeah, we have kind of 6. There's probably 10 people involved, but there's usually 6 there on every week. And I don't know how Summer Plunder has been growing it necessarily, but we've just been regular enough. People have heard about it and they're coming in to stop by and play some games. Got our kit in and did the first treasure scramble scenario. We did 2 3-player games, which 4 is better because each person gets a corner and everybody's equal part. If you do 3 players, 2 people get a corner, 1 person gets a side. I was that person on the side. And then they're closest to both other players and they get killed, I found out.
Yeah. 3
And it happened in
3-player
both teams.
games I've found only really work if the odd player out, if it's like a team game. You have
Yeah.
a larger list versus 2 people that are smaller lists.
And the 2 people are playing, they're both playing French. And at the end of the game, this guy's like, "Oh yeah, we weren't on a team, were we?" I kind of just felt like we were.
It just felt like the thing to do.
Yeah, the store is supporting us really well. We have a all-day event on schedule for Saturday, July 6th. I think we got at least 10 or 12 people coming for that, coming as far as Seattle and maybe Eugene, so like 3 hours north and south. So that should be a good time. We're going to try to run like all 3 scenarios in the organized play kit, the treasure scramble and the capture the surgeon and the fleet battle. We'll see if we get through them all or not. Give out some plunder and should be a good time. Met some of the people that we met up at Enfilade, the West Coast wargaming convention, are going to come down from Seattle and get some more games in. So
How did that go, by the way? I don't know
yeah,
if
have
we've
we
talked about
podcasted
that.
since then? I don't think we
I
have.
don't think we
I don't
have.
think
We
so.
have. Oh yeah, I wrote a blog post about it. I think right. Yeah, I was going to do a video, but I have not. It went really well. It wasn't exactly what I expected. Whenever you go to a new convention, you've got to learn the ropes. It was felt small, even though it's lays claim to being the largest wargaming convention west of the Mississippi. Probably maybe 400 or 500 people there at once. I'm not sure how many total over the whole weekend. One big gaming hall, and yeah, I've been to Gen Con, I've been to Historicon, I've been to Adepticon. Those are all major events. They have multiple rooms. You can reserve tables for different kinds of events. This is very different. One big room, It was just a bunch of like 6x6 tables, square tables, big tables, just 3 rows of them. And the whole convention is organized in 4-hour time slots. So if you want an event, you have to take one of these tables and do a 4-hour time slot. So that was kind of weird. But we did 2 events. We did a Learn to Play where we took our 6x6 table and split it up into 4, or maybe it was 8x8, something like that.
That's gigantic.
Yeah, they're huge. They're made for the expansive, sprawling wargaming, eye candy events, Waterloo, and stuff like that. And that's what most people were doing, is run some big fancy game with a fairly easy set of rules, it felt like, to just do big things with their friends at a convention. So, yeah, our events weren't even filled up when we went there. And then they had paper signups to fill up the rest of events. So by the time our event started, it was full and had a wait list. So we were expecting, I brought like 4 guys up from my game group, and we were expecting, okay, we'll meet the other 4 guys and we'll just play some relaxed games and have a good time. But the events all filled up and people were coming by, and we were teaching games heavy duty for that 4-hour time slot during the Learn to Play event. And then we had a big fleet battle at the end. We did the Charles Vane scenario that you guys did at Adepticon.
Mm-hmm. That was my favorite scenario from Adepticon, I think.
Good, yeah, I think it's fun. We thought the people that had come to the Learn to Play would come to that event, but probably it was supposed to be for 8 players. By the time we were into it, it was 11 players, and 6 of them had never played before. So it was kind of chaotic. It was pretty crazy. But everybody had a good time. I felt like people really eating the game up. I think it's quite a bit different than most of the games present there. Having a point system, being a small, usually 1 to 2 hour game rather than a 4-hour game, was very different than what most people were doing there. And having an in-depth and tight rule set seemed to be appealing to people as well. So, and then we met so many people that said, "Oh, I bought this when the first Kickstarter came out, and I got 1 ship painted and some guys, but I couldn't get people to play it with." Probably heard that same thing from 10 people up there. So there's a lot of people in the Seattle area, and a lot of wargamers. I just need to get people connected and playing some games to get Blood Plunder off the ground. But it was a good event. It was hard work. I was exhausted. We left at 6 a.m. and got home at 2 a.m.
Whew. Long day.
1 day round trip. Felt kind of bad for the guys who carpooled with me, but I appreciated my team helping out. They all taught games and jumped into the trenches, helping out with more than we bargained for. And both of the guys were just raring to go and do it again next year and set up a bigger, fancier table. So, yeah, success, a lot of work, know better how to plan for next year. The Enfilade is Memorial Day weekend every year in Tacoma, Washington, south suburb of Seattle.
I have actually been there.
Oh, yeah?
I've been to Tacoma, Washington. It was when I was a kid.
Ah, okay.
So it's been a long time ago, but I can say I have been there.
It's kind of a sketchy part of town, just a La Quinta Inn that smelled funny. Not the best venue, but they got their venue pulled out from under them 2 months before the event, so they had to scramble. But it all happened.
It looked like a really small venue for how many people were in that gaming hall.
It was packed. It was noisy and it was packed.
It looked like it was you had to like probably swim through people to get to one side and the other.
You could walk, but it was a full room. Tables, yeah, just one big room. And then the vendors were in the hallways, so that was kind of crowded too. It wasn't too busy, but there were some good deals. I found some nice resin cast terrain, like a kind of a battery or fort, coastal fort kind of thing that had a breach in it that will paint up nice. It's really affordable. Some local vendors I had never even heard of, but selling like resin pieces by the part, like 25 cents for a 4-inch wall of like a brick wall made out of resin cast. Really cheap stuff. Another cool thing out was these kind of just layout roads, flexible plastic that you can just lay out on your board. You can kind of twist them, and there's different shapes and T's and crossroads and stuff. But threw those down on the board, and they just look like muddy dirt because it's just a textured, colored plastic. But kind of a great accessory. But overall, really happy with the event. Sorry I took too long talking about it, but I should have made that a segment. I forgot I hadn't talked about it since that happened.
Yeah, until you mentioned it, I'd forgotten about it too. But we can segue into what we've been up to lately, besides Summer of Plunder stuff.
What have you been up to, Garrett? We'll let you start.
This is kind of Summer of Plunder tangential, but I have been painting a Kraken for a game that I want to run. I got this model from Jason at Adepticon. He had it in a random plastic bag and was like, "Here, take this." I was like, "Okay." So I've mocked up a little rule set that I want to play test, and I've told some people about it at the game store, and so it's gotten some buzz, and so I want to try it out. It's basically going to be a game that everybody's going to bring a ship, have a point limit on a ship, so load a ship out, and then I am going to be kind of GMing and running the Kraken. So
Ooh.
everybody's going to be running and playing, working together to fight me. So I've tried to make the Kraken pretty powerful, but not sink your ship in a turn powerful type thing. So
I think Greg, Dan, your second in command, has done a Kraken game a couple of years running with Blood and Plunder. I wonder if you could see what he's been using as far as rule set. He always does some cool pictures. I think in the fall he does a pirate day and does a Kraken scenario.
Yeah, I believe it's his birthday. He does a big old pirate game. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. He does a great setup.
but yeah, I got that going on. I got some paints recently, some new paints. So I am known as probably a cheapo painter. I mostly just buy acrylic paints, craft store stuff. I'm snobby about my brands because I've gone through some craft store paints that were just not good. And so I have brands that I like.
Consistency is not always consistent, is it?
Right, exactly.
Across different brands.
But I tried out, or I'm currently trying out, the Monument Hobbies paint set that Firelock is selling. So be on the lookout for an article about that coming from the perspective of somebody that doesn't use specific miniature paints much. So this is kind of a new frontier for me. So
yeah, so they partnered with them to make a set of paints with Blood and Plunder on the front, and they have it as an add-on on their current Port Royal Kickstarter. That's awesome.
yep, it's it was funny. I went to the Port Royal Kickstarter, and I was going to get at least the digital rule book for that. And I saw that paint set was on there. I was like, okay, yeah, I'll add that on. And then like a day later, I saw, oh, it's just on the website. I can just order it right now.
Oh, nice. I have to wait till the fall.
I'll just go ahead and get that. And so I took it off the add-on for the Port Royal thing. Here you go, Firelock. You can have my money now instead of later. But that's pretty much it for me. What have you been doing in your world, Dan?
I've been just doing some painting. I think I've talked about before. I have a Great Northern War naval expansion that I'm working on. That'll be official. So I am just working on the display minis. So the little mini pictures when you open your book, I'm working on the minis for that. So I've been slowly chugging through that. It's been a lot because work has been very busy, but I'm slowly getting back in the groove of painting everything. And then we got a big old nice chunk of demo minis for next year. So when we run demos, they'll bring our own minis. So I've been priming getting those ready because I'll be painting those for us as well. Because I'm the fastest painter here. So going to Speed Paints Go Burr and get all of these little metal guys painted. I haven't touched a metal mini in a while. So
thank you for lowering your standards and doing the hard work. Appreciate that.
yeah.
I don't think you would particularly enjoy painting. Is that what you've said in the past?
So I'm more of a gamer than a painter, so I like to paint as fast as possible. I don't like to paint. On commanders, I like to paint them. I like to paint characters, but as far as like run-of-the-mill guys, I don't like to paint. I think I have an article on the blog called Painting for People Who Don't Like to Paint. That's me.
Yeah. I think I remembered that. So
speed paints work really well for that, and I really kind of dialed in my process. So I'm going to be painting a bunch of Spanish minis, and I've never painted Spanish minis before. So it'll be interesting.
It always takes me longer the first time I paint a new miniature. You have to explore all the little bits and figure out what each piece is and stuff. So thanks for tackling new miniatures.
And then other than that, I've just been chugging through Sea Rovers practice, and then non-Plunder related. Me and my fiance went to Fan Expo in Dallas, and we got to meet David Tennant. I know a lot of people know him from Doctor Who and Good Omens. And then I got to meet Tim Morrison, Boba Fett, got an autograph and everything. Got a picture taken and an autograph. Got to meet him at the table, and it was fantastic. It was so much fun.
Nice.
I wasn't
Cool.
going to go, and then I saw that he was going to be there, and we said, absolutely, we're going, because he never comes down this far south. So I saw he was there, took a Sunday off of work, and it was fantastic.
Well, that's kind of your guy, isn't he?
Oh yeah. I told him when I got up to the table, like, I've been watching you in media since 2002, and he was like, well, I hope it was worth it. Because like every time I saw him attack the clones, and, oh, Jango Fett, that's cool. Coming off the original trilogy, that's Boba Fett's dad, that's awesome. And then when they redubbed him over in the original trilogy, I went, oh, that's Jango Fett, that's awesome. And then I was with my grandparents at one point, and we watched this movie called like Speed 2, something to do with the cruise ship, and he plays on the security guards. I'm sitting there with my grandparents. I go, wait a second, that's Jango Fett. And then all the Star Wars media that he does, because we're all nerds here. But yeah, so I've just been slowly consuming his media, and then Book of Boba Fett came out a couple of years ago, and my fiance got me a art print, and I had him sign that, and he was great.
It's nice when a celebrity is nice.
Oh yeah, David Tennant, man. Like, I don't want to get too far off on a tangent. It's not Plunder related, but the venue was not prepared for the amount of popularity that David Tennant brings in. So we were waiting in line for quite some time, but even though they had this poor man hooked up to a Dr. Pepper IV and blowing through people as fast as possible, he made a point to give everybody at least 30 to like 45 seconds experience with him before, the handler waved him forward. He was great. So much respect for him, and he was fantastic.
Sounds like a good experience.
Oh, it was awesome. I gotta go back next year to get Fennec Shan's autograph on the art print. I missed her by a day.
My 2-year-old thought that she was Boba Fett's mom. That's what her analysis of the show after watching. Is that Boba Fett's mom?
Yeah, and I remember I sent you that that mini for Legion after you said some not nice things about my boy.
Don't get me started on some of those Disney shows.
We won't. Just want to make sure you remember that I sent you that.
I do remember. Thank you. James, my son, has been playing Legion a lot, and he's used that. Thank you.
Awesome. He earns my stamp of approval.
I will say about Boba Fett, he has a very cool costume, and then that's all I have to say about Boba Fett. Moving on. So, Joseph, what have you been doing besides your world traveling?
A lot of Summer Plunder stuff. Already went over that. Saving pictures, getting everything moving there. Shipping prizes for Summer of Plunder. Post office people dread seeing me coming because of all my international customs forms, but tough.
Here he comes. Come on, everyone. We trained for this.
Lunch break. It's lunch break. I've just sat down to paint finally again yesterday. Haven't painted anything for like the last 2 months. It's horrible. I've been working on this Christopher Ming's Early Buccaneers small scale expansion for Blood and Plunder for Firelock Games, and just painted the Christopher Ming's miniature last night. They have a legendary miniature made up for him, and got some paint on him last night. That felt good. I got some more Buccaneers I want to paint for that project as well. So it feels good to paint some more of these resin miniatures. Are sure nice. We had talked about them before, but I do like them. Regular weekly games at my game store. We finished the campaign, the Granada campaign that's part of that Ming's expansion. It was kind of a long process because it's 6 linked scenarios, and we had basically 2 groups playtesting each scenario side by side, kind of speed playtesting. But I mean, it meant everybody had to be there to do it. So instead of doing 6 weeks in a row, it was like 3 months in a row. And we learned a lot from it, and it was good, and people enjoyed it, though the Spanish players felt a little bit unappreciated or undervalued. The Spanish get to lose a lot, but the English, they need to win by a big margin at the end to have the whole expedition considered a success. They can't just survive, but they need to have lots of guys left to have lots of plunder. So at the end, the Spanish were surprised that they had actually had a slight victory or had produced a draw or almost one when they felt like they were losing the whole time. But all you need to do is whittle down those English and kill enough of them where they're discouraged by the end. So figuring out how to write an introduction for the campaign so it kind of makes sense and sets people's expectations was the biggest, most important thing we got out of the playtest. But thank you, my team, for helping out with that. It was a big project. But I think it'll be fun for some people. I haven't been reading much. Dan and me are trying to get a book review kind of thing going here, but I usually read a lot, but sometimes things get busy. So I've been reviewing Republic of Pirates for the third time, just so I'm ready to review that. That's been kind of fun to review. And Sea Rover's Practice is always fun to get back to, so I touched on that. And for the blog, I've been working on a New England Village Garrison faction review. It's one of the more unique factions in the game just because of how bad it is. So that's been kind of fun to write. Other blog admin stuff, but having a great time. That's it for me, I think.
All right. Well, speaking of big projects, we're going to move on into the big project, the ship project that we've been talking about. So the way this is going to go is we're going to just kind of take you through our processes for rigging and making the masts for the ships. And we'll kind of interject on each other a little bit, but it's going to be, going through one person at a time, their entire process. And I will go first. So usually when I start on a ship's masts and rigging, I have everything about the hull done. Like I finish the hull completely before I start on this stuff. And the first thing I do, I like to paint my masts. So I like to stain my masts, and I have my brown wash, and I will go through, and before I glue anything together or anything, I will stain my masts that brown wash and let that dry and get completely dry before I start gluing things together. Then I will do wood glue and go through there's a rigging guide on Firelock's website that will take you through, and it's labeled pretty well. It'll label all the parts for you, and you'll know what part to put where most of the time. If you ever have a problem with that, if you're on Discord or Facebook, most of the time, if you throw up a question on there, somebody's going to jump in and answer it for you. But yeah, wood glue, put all the pieces together, and then let that completely dry. And I think this may be where we start to deviate from our process. I start rigging after that. I will put the masts where they need to go. My bowsprit, I will usually glue in, and that's like the only thing that I will glue to the actual hull of the ship. My masts that stand straight up, I will just dry fit them into the hull opening for them, and my rigging will be tight and hold the mast where it needs to be. Usually the bowsprit will be the part that I have a rigging line going from it to the main mast, depending on what ship model that I'm doing, but it will kind of pull that mast forward, and I will use it to kind of center the mast. And then the what do you call the lines going to the side of the ship? Technical term
The
here.
rat line?
The rat lines, yeah. I will have those tightened enough to where I've got those even, like, so one side might be slightly tighter than the other, but I got to even my masts up so that they're perfectly straight, or as straight as I can get them. And so once I get everything rigged up like that, and I use the elastic lines to line the rigging up, I will start working on sails and cutting out sails. And I will usually make little holes in my cotton. I think it's cotton. It may not be cotton, but I have a certain cloth that I use. I'll cut them out. I'll put little holes in the top, and then I will use, most of the time, my little leftover rigging elastic pieces that I've trimmed off. Because, okay, so step that I missed that's pretty important. When I tie my knots for, like, when I do the rigging, I will tie a knot with a lot of slack, and then I'll put a little dab of white glue on the knot. And then once that white glue dries, I will cut the slack off. And so most of my rigging, unless I've forgotten to cut the slack off, you can't see the knots too well because I don't have the extra pieces from where I've tied the knot. I've trimmed those off pretty close. And after that, sometimes I'll have long enough pieces of those little excess pieces that I've cut off that they will be big enough that I can tie the sails to the spars on the masts. And that's the cross pieces on the masts. And that's pretty much it. That's my entire process from start to finish. Got anything to say about my process, guys? Criticisms, critiques, questions, comments, concerns?
One of the brilliant things I do is use my sail templates or the sails that I have prepared to make sure I glue the mast together correctly. Sometimes you get a bunch of dowels; these are the resin kits, and you have to glue your mast together. And sometimes you have some choice in how long you extend them when the big dowel meets the middle dowel and the top dowel. You can kind of stretch that further, you kind of compact them a little bit. And sometimes it's wise to use your sail template to figure out how you're spacing for your different portions of your main mast and any of the masts that are more than one piece, basically. Do you ever find that they don't fit exactly like you thought if you don't use that template to make sure they're all good?
I have measured it with the template before, and sometimes with the gaff sails that swing around,
Mhm.
I will usually just measure that based on the height of the models on the ship
Mhm.
because I don't want the gaff sail to be swinging and knocking my guys' heads off when I move it to the other side. Because when I'm playing a sloop, I will usually move that out of the way one way or the other if I'm like trying to reach guys. So I make sure that my top priority on that one is to keep it high enough to where it's not going to hit the guys when I swing it across the deck. And then
Right.
past that, I just try to make it as large as possible. But
They worked hard to make sure that the plastic's big gaff spar is high enough. It doesn't get in the way, but makes it look kind of funny. But yeah, that's important for
yeah,
gameplay usability.
Yeah, your process is pretty straightforward. I don't have any concerns, complaints.
How do you make sales? What do you do for sales? We just kind of skipped that.
so I have just some cloth that I get from work. So I do a lot of instrumentation, cleaning, and repairs and things like that. So if you know anything about mass specs, they are very delicate instruments that sometimes their parts need cleaned. And I have these, I think they're cotton cloths, but they're just like sheets of cloth and they're just made for setting the parts on basically and cleaning the parts on them. And then you just throw them away after you get finished. Well, ever since I've gotten into Blood and Plunder, when I do this, I keep them instead of throwing them away because I'm like, I can make a sale out of that. It's fine. I don't need to throw this away.
It's
So
probably a
that's
really fine weave, which is perfect.
yeah, it's nice. I make my if you've ever seen my flags, I also make it out of that material as well.
You've been crazy with flags, freehanding awesome stuff. Fun to see
Yeah,
that. Post pictures in the big group.
I was super happy with the way that one came out. I started that. I started going with that. If you're talking about my Spanish, the flag that the Spanish had after the Habsburg dynasty.
Mhm.
Yeah, I wanted one of those, and I was like, do I print it out? Is it going to look wonky if I try it? I just decided I'm going to try it and see how it looks, and I was like, I did an okay job. I'm
Yeah,
happy with this. And then for my Summer of Plunder challenge this week, I had the Spanish players do something religious related on the board. I said just like get a good picture of your guys around a church, have a standard bearer that's got a religious, figure on there. I've got some illustrations of some mission natives going to war with, and one of them's holding like a banner of the Virgin Mary. I was like, oh, that's cool. And so, yeah, like sails, like crosses on sails. I was like, just get creative, do anything, even down to like if you have a priest in your army, that's fine too. But do something religious. So that's been cool. And I've recreated that picture of the guy holding the banner of the Virgin Mary. I think my guy's just got a machete, but in my picture he's got a musket. But since the standard bearer in Blood and Plunder does not get a musket, I couldn't put a musket on the model. I think I went off on a tangent there. I'm not sure what the question was originally.
Dan, how do you do your sails and rigging?
So I'm kind of the same process, but I tend to do everything first. So the ships come with a nice little template to tell you the different sizes of the dowels, and it tells you what dowels to use on the mast. So I'll get all those assembled. I used to use a wash, kind of like Garrett does, to go ahead and stain them. I am lazy, so I found a really nice flat brown spray paint, and as soon as I get it all assembled and I use wood glue, I let it cure for 24 to 48 hours. I poke holes in a piece of cardboard, stick that through as the base, and then I just hit them with a flat paint.
If I can interject, the reason I've stained mine first is I've found that the stain does not look good when the wood glue dries. Like the stain doesn't go into the wood glue, and so it looks, the wood glue is kind of semi-transparent, so it looks fine as long as the stain's underneath it. But if the stain's on top of it, it doesn't look good, in my opinion. So that's why I do all my staining first.
That's fair. I'm lazy. I like to just hit it with that spray paint, let it sit, and then it's good to go.
Getting it done quick counts for a lot.
And it's basically just standard Rust-Oleum flat paint is basically what I use. I hose it. I have a nice little station that I can sit it on that rotates. So I have a little tree stump that came with the house that I just set up on my back slab, stick it on there, and I just spray it. And then I try to get under, make sure I get every nook and cranny, let that dry, and then I will dry fit the masts, make sure the masts fit in the holes and everything. They don't need any help. I add the sails on, and my sails. Recently, I've been having sails made by my wonderful fiance because she can actually sew, whereas I cannot. But other than that, if I'm feeling really, really lazy, I found that if you get some colored cardstock and then print out basically 2 sets of the templates, you can actually glue them together with basically like a Mod Podge and then use a clear coat to kind of seal everything in. And that looks really good. And you can actually, while it's wet, you can conform it to look like there's wind in it and whatnot. They're great. I love it. And if you want to age it, you can dunk it in tea or coffee for about a minute and then take it out, let it dry, and hit it with a clear coat to seal it all in. Other than that, I've used foam. It kind of depends what my process is at that point in time. Look at my brigantine and my sloop. They have red foam sails, but I'm probably going to replace those at some point. And then when it comes to the rigging, I'm really, really boring. I kind of just follow the diagram. I put the little black elasticy where it's supposed to go. I don't do any of the rigging that runs in between masts because my rigging holds my masts in. So for transport, I'll just kind of pull up the masts and lay them down parallel to the hull. So it's dual purpose of keeping the masts in place, and it looks cool. I haven't been rigging a lot as of late because my only issue with rigging is it gets in the way of measuring and getting models and whatnot.
Yeah, it looks really cool, but it does impede some of that stuff. I want to say that my rigging that I do, I lay my masts down like that as well. I do minimal rigging in between. Like I said, I like to keep my masts upright, so I have to do a little bit, but it still works if you do the rigging in between to lay your mast down. You have to be maybe a little bit more careful doing it, though.
Yeah, I just did a whole refit of my 6-rate. I brought it home from my game store. I dusted it off, did a whole kind of light cleaning just to get all the dust off of it, and then the masts were glued, so I very carefully unglued the masts and took off the rigging and did a new coat of paint because they were originally stained. I put a new coat of flat paint on all the masts, and then my fiance is making new sails for it out of material that we got online that looks really, really nice, like a Baroque dark red, and it looks great. And I'll be doing that, and once that is completed, I'll probably put a picture or two on the blog. But yeah, I'm pretty straightforward and simple. I want to bring my 6-rate to Adepticon this next year, so I wanted to make sure that I was able to break it down and transport it safely because it's my baby and it's my favorite ship.
Yeah.
The big ships are hard to do that with.
Especially because I'll be traveling by train.
You can join the parade of the sixth rates.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Joseph? What's your process? I'm sure you got dead eyes and exact scale rope. Takes 18 hours to do one little piece of rope. Go ahead and tell us.
No, I don't go crazy. I've never done dead eyes. I've never done the tied the little shrouds, horizontal bits. You can go crazy. You can go crazy and spend hours and hours on rigging, and it looks really cool. I try to strike a balance of making it look a little as realistic as I can without burning my whole life out doing it and without making it unusable. And everybody has their own balance and what they willing to invest and tolerate as far as gameplay. But Liam Taylor has been poisoning me with rigging particularness for long enough. I feel I've been adding more. I used to just do bare minimum, but I've been adding more lately, and I've been having fun with it. There's a lot to learn and know about it, which is kind of scary. But I want to recommend 2 resources if you're interested in doing more than just what the rigging diagram from Firelock Games, which is plenty and looks good. But if you want to add a couple extra things and or maybe learn a little bit about rigging, I've been using 2 books, Rigging Period Fore and Aft Craft by Lennarth Peterson. It is free if you're on Kindle. Maybe if you, I don't know if it's free to everybody or if people who have Amazon Prime, but it is like an 80-page book. It goes through basically all the rigging close-ups of each joint and mast and everything for a Bermuda sloop, basically, which is super helpful. Gives you all the silly names of things and shows you how the rope works and how things join together, and can be really, really helpful if you want to do anything extra. Sometimes you start doing extra stuff and then you learn that that's not even a thing. So you didn't need to do that, and it doesn't look right if you look at a real ship. So if you're going to do extra, make sure you look at something so it's something extra that's real. Another book is The Sloop of War. The Sloop of War, I guess it's called, by Ian McLaughlin. Really good book on 17th century, all the way up into the late 18th century, actually. Just small warships, the development of them, the use of them through all this Blood Plunder period. And it has a lot of good just pen drawings of different ships by a guy who really knows his stuff. That has some good rigging layouts, and just you can see something that you can add easy and just do it. So those are 2 really. That one's only $5 on Kindle. The real book, it's a big book, like a 14 by 14. It's like a coffee table book. Really beautiful book. A lot of nice reproduced paintings from the 17th century, the Anglo-Dutch Wars. There's a bunch of cool Dutch paintings from that area. Really beautiful book, but it's like $60. No, been $5 Kindle, and we are giving away one for the Summer of Plunder. I forget what prize it's for, but we are giving one away. If you look at the prize lineup, you could aim for that if you want. Anyway, my process is when I'm about 3/4 way through painting my ship, I start gluing the masts all together, and because there's a lot of little joints for a big ship, it can take a while to glue one part and then wait for it to dry, glue the next part. So it could take 3 evenings to glue the mast together. So I try to start that early. I used to stain mine beforehand, and everybody has what works for them. But I felt sometimes after I stained it, the part swelled enough. Then I had to ream out parts to make it fit, and then I had to stain it again. So I've gone, and I used to use like Agrax Earthshade to color my wood. I do like how the stain kind of makes it look like real wood rather than just a flat spray paint. I did flat spray paint a couple of my ships, but then there was one time where I just, like, the wind was blowing a little bit and I ended up sucking up half the paint into my lungs, and I felt terrible for a week. So, and it went through a ton of spray paint too when you're trying to spray paint something skinny and get all of your little crack. So I'm traumatized from that. So I don't do that anymore. But I do glue mine together, and then I use contrast, GW contrast paint on them. And I have had the similar issue with the wash with the glue, like you were talking about, Garrett, but the contrast paint actually has enough body to be a little forgiving around those glue joints. So I've had a little issue with glue looking funky if I get too much glue at a joint, and the wash doesn't cover it very well. But I use just Elmer's white glue, all-purpose glue, which is a little more transparent. And the contrast paint does a good job going over it. I'll use, what are the 2 mainstay browns? Snake bite leather, I think. That's my favorite one for mast right now. Or if I want to go dark, wildwood. Those are both good colors. But I'll use my sail templates or the sails I have prepared when I lay out my mast piece to make sure I have good margins for everything so I can have some billow in the sails and they aren't just flat. They look funky flat. And then I'll glue them all together, then stain them, and then I'll glue them in. I like my masts glued in for whatever reason. I've had enough ships where the holes for the mast are wobbly enough. I don't think I could get them to be really stable otherwise. And then I start rigging it. I've bought some spools of elastic thread, so I must confess I have multiple diameters and multiple styles of thread in different colors. So you got me there, Dan. But not too crazy.
I'm glad.
Is it all elastic?
Not all of it. I use some string. So there's two main kinds of rigging. There's the standing rigging, I think it's called. Liam's going to get me if I get it wrong. But basically the rigging that holds everything in place. So you have your stays that hold the mast from going backwards and forwards and side to side. And those are just static most of the time. You tighten them down and it holds your mast in place. Then you have the running rigging that like pulls the pieces this way and that to adjust sails and stuff. And the static rigging, it's all usually kind of a darker black color because they'll coat it with, it doesn't need to move. They coat it with tar and stuff so it withstands the weather and it's just really sturdy. And then the rigging that you move around, usually a lighter color, but it's not as blackened with the tar. So I do have some lighter colored thread, heavy thread, like a quilters or almost like the lightest crochet thread that you can get. Just at craft stores, you can get different kinds of thread. So I'll use that for some of the rigging that's not supposed to be tight. Like there's lines that go from I can't remember all the names. It's so hard to remember all the rigging stuff. I had no idea about any of the rigging stuff going into it. So trying to remember all these things is hard for me. The yards, they have lines that go to the back of the ship so you can kind of pull the sail this way and that to go different directions. And those would be looser. They wouldn't be tight. So I use a non-elastic thread there. And if you get the wrong kind of thread, it doesn't really hang. It's not heavy enough or it's not flexible enough to just hang. But I figured out if you paint it with contrast paint, you can kind of shape it and then it dries in that shape and it's kind of more crunchy and a little stiff. And it darkens the light brown down to more of a dirty looking rope color. So I've been really, really happy with that the last couple ships I've done. I'll use my elastic for all my static lines, the stays forward, everything on the Firelock template basically. And then I'll start to add fancy stuff and I'll use quite a bit of, I'll do backstays. That's with elastic as well. On the main mast, you have the shrouds where you guys would walk up. Then you have these front stays, and that is on the pattern where you have a line going from the mast up to the next mast forward or up to the bowsprit, so your mast doesn't fall backwards. And you also have backstays that go backwards and hold the mast from getting pushed forwards. You need lines to keep your whole system from going any way. And that's not on the template, but it's really easy to do. Just drill a little hole in the side of your hole and run your elastic line there, run it through the hole and tie a knot, and then it just cinch it up tight. So that's a nice, easy line to add to make it look kind of cool.
Do you do that? Do you drill the hole before you paint?
No.
Oh, I would have thought you did, but okay. Glad I asked.
If you aren't careful, you can scratch paint, but I've maybe had trouble with that once and just patch it. But if you have a nice little handheld drill with a sharp bit, you can drill through the resin quite easily. But I haven't had an issue with that.
Okay.
And then about halfway through the rigging process, I'll get some of the lines to hold the mast kind of sturdy, and then I'll put on my sails, and I use a 2mm punch from a craft store for like scrapbooking or something to punch holes in my sails to tie them to the spars.
What material do you use for sails?
I've done a wide variety of stuff. The easiest and cheapest and biggest bang if you're a buck is just get a nice piece of like craft paper or art paper, like for a pencil drawing at your craft store. Has a little bit off-white, a little bit of texture to it. Just trace the templates from the Firelock website onto those, cut them out. You can give them some shape by just rolling the paper up. And you can kind of cut a curve in the bottom to make it look billowy. You can even cut little droopy curves in the top where to kind of give little points where the ties connect to the spars. You can I just draw lines on it with a pencil, a mechanical pencil, so I get a nice tidy line for the different portions of the sailcloth. Just use a ruler, draw out the lines. You can draw the little ties 3/4 of the way down the sail, front and back if you want. I forget what those are called. They have a name. But it literally costs like $3 for a sheet of paper, and you can do 5 ships out of it, and there is no other expense. You can do foam, craft foam. I've done that. It's really bright white, though. It's harder to draw on. It's harder to tone down. It's just so bright. Hard to find an off-white color for that. I've tried my own cloth sails without much success, just because it takes a lot of sewing experience to make those look great. I really love Siemens quality sails if you can get your hands on those. By the way, she retired and decided not to do it, and then she's decided to do it again, but not take custom orders. So we hopefully should have some more sets of those available in our Blood and Pigment shop if you want some beautiful quilted sails. So I'm really fortunate to have picked up several sets of those. So I have several ships I need to do with those still. I have an article on Blood and Pigment, like 5 different kinds of sails you can use. I've purchased Rick Kassler sails. He has sails on eBay. He airbrushes foam, and it looks pretty good, but they're really, really brown, which is the only thing that is not my favorite. But I have a set of those on my 6th rate on my galleon. They're a lot cheaper than the Siemens ones, but they're still like $50, $60 for a set of the galleon sails, just because there's so many of them. Paper cloth, foam. Yep, I've done a little bit of everything. Another thing I like to do, especially on the bigger ships, if you look at paintings of the period, they have like the masts have bindings on them, basically big sections of rope that's tied around this mast to reinforce it so it has less likelihood of splitting. I looked it up and I found the name of it. It's called wool something.
Moldings?
Moldings, yeah. That can help make your ship look cool. It's really easy. You just tie elastic and wrap it around like 10 times, and you have a little black stripe on your little segment of mast that's bound with a rope. Looks cool. You can do like 4 or 5, 6 of those up the first 2 portions of the mast. Makes it look a little more period, and it's really easy. And then after I get all my sails on, I'll finish out any extra bonus rigging I want to put on. Usually that thread kind of rigging will do that last, rather than the elastic stuff. And I try not to make it too crazy so I can't get models in and out, but I don't really ever lose any models in games because I win so much, so it's not really a problem.
Yeah, if nobody dies, you don't have to get your fingers in there. So
That's right. That's right. So I probably spend 4 hours on a big ship doing my rigging. Sail creation takes time if you do fancy sails, but if you just do paper, it doesn't take very long, half hour to make a set of 8 or 6 sails or so. But yeah, time gets away from me when I start rigging my ship at 11 o'clock at night, and then all of a sudden, oh my goodness, it's 3 o'clock and I'm not even done yet. I thought this would be an hour project. So you can kind of get lost in it. Just put on something to listen to and don't rush it. I don't use any fancy knots, just double overhand knot, granny knot everywhere. That's the nice thing about the elastic. You can just tie it tight and nip it and don't have to put any glue on it. So I like that. But it's not hard. Don't be intimidated by it if you have a ship that needs to be rigged. It just takes a little time. Just try something easy. Just make paper sails. Just use a ruler, draw lines on it if you want it to look a little more fancy. Use the elastic line that comes in the kit. If you don't have enough line or didn't get any somehow, we sell little bits of it on our really cheap on our Blood and Pigment shop, different diameters if you want to get fancy. Just print out that sail diagram from the download section of the Firelock Games website. Just do what they got there. Make sure to just lay out all your dowels nice and neat. Make sure you got everything you need. If you don't have the right dowel, or you can contact Firelock or just pick up a dowel at Home Depot to make sure you got everything you need. Just don't rush it. Just plan on spending a couple evenings prepping your sails and mast, and then just get a long evening, put something on, and start tying knots, and it comes together, and it looks good, and really makes that ship come alive on the table.
Did they used to have a larger gauge elastic thread that came with the kits? I feel like they've reduced that down to like a 0.5 millimeter. It used to be like a 0.8.
I think it was a 1 millimeter, which was just so huge and fat.
Yeah. I was
But
gonna say
yeah,
like the bigger whatever size it was, like you said, it might have been a 1 millimeter and now it's a 0.8. The 1 millimeter was very difficult because you couldn't get it through the holes very easily.
especially the old metal parts, the wood is a lot nicer.
I don't have any experience with the
Yeah, the metal, that was not good.
Yeah, I don't have any experience with the metals.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah, another real word to the wise here, when you're gluing your mask together, make sure you don't, the little joiners where you have to have little holes where you put the line through. I'm sure there's a real name for it, but I don't know it. Make sure you leave enough margin so you can push your string through the holes. And I use my nippers a lot, my little sprue cutters, while rigging to cut all my line. And as kind of needle nose pliers, you can stick that thread through, then grab it gently with your nippers and pull it through when your fingers might be too fat to get in there.
Right.
Also, on that elastic line, be really careful not to pull it too tight. It looks good, nice and taut, and you might feel good about getting it tight, but it will warp your wood eventually. I've used fighting tops and I run it through there and then it looks great. And then a year later, the constant pressure of those elastic lines had bent my whole fighting top. And now the models never stayed up there very well, but now with it all drooping, they always fall off. So tight enough to look good, but don't overdo the tightness. Otherwise, your rigging will warp and ship will not sail straight anymore.
Yeah.
You will always roll ones when you hit a shoal.
Yeah. No, that's good. You want to hit it one.
Yeah, you
Cool.
want to hit tens.
Sorry, tens. That's what I
Or you
meant.
want to hit ones, you need to hit tens.
Yeah.
It shows you how often I hit shoals.
Yeah.
Oh, I know how it works.
Do we have any announcements or anything as far as upcoming events? I think that about covers it.
Yeah, I think that gets it. I think the first thing that's on the docket for this year, the remaining portion of this year, is Historicon on July 17th through the 21st. There will be a land tournament on Friday from 1 to 6 p.m.
I think they're expecting about 20 players or so it should be good.
Yeah, I know there's I mean, it's still Historicon. There's a lot of guys that go up to that.
A lot of players around there.
Yeah, in the Northeast, Pennsylvania, Maryland, New York area ish. There's also Gen Con over in Indianapolis, August 1st through the 4th. I will be there. We're going to be doing a treasure ship game, and I will be available for some pickup games and demos in a couple of the sessions. So come check that out if you're interested. I'm sure they're going to have Port Royal there, and I have yet to play Port Royal, so I'll probably be trying to get some games of that in at Gen Con just to try it out. So that'll be fun. And then Summer of Plunder is going to be Gen Con's usually the last weekend of Summer of Plunder, so it's going through August 3rd. So get those games in.
Yep. If you haven't jumped in yet, just check it out on the Blood and Pigment website. There's a Summer of Plunder tab. There's a page with all the rules and info on how the campaign works. There's a Discord channel where it's a lot of chatter happening and kind of coordination between the different nations. There's updates on the blog. It's easy to jump in and out of if you just want to submit a couple games. You might get some prizes. You can keep watching the updates to see other people's games and see what's going on. Not a high commitment, but it can be fun.
So for more Blood and Plunder content, you can go to bloodandpigment.com and check out all the material we have there. We have articles on ships, nations, factions, terrain, painting guides, battle reports, anything you can think of, really. So go check it out.
And you can check out our YouTube channel as well. We've got some stuff up there recently. We've been putting this podcast up there and getting more hits there than the audio releases. Thanks for checking us out there. And we got our Patreon up if you want to help us out a little bit. We I do a lot of expenses doing this and have a good time doing it, but it helps having a little support. If you want to throw us a doubloon or two, patreon.com/blood and pigment.
And as always, keep your dice ready to win at your back, yar har.